Okay, so today I would like to show you how to set up groups and components. I'll probably make two videos. The first one just showing you how to make groups and what the benefits are, and then I'll make another one that's about components, and that will show you the difference between groups and components. So first off, I want to just review a little bit of what we talked about in class, last class period, about just kind of setting up basic shapes and how to move those basic shapes. And we talked about copying and pasting those basic shapes. So again, you have to triple click something if you want to move it, as we talked about. So if I want to move things, I triple click it first, and that lets me move the entire object, as opposed to if I just accidentally click one face and then try to move it, it's only going to move that one face. And so there it's kind of rotating, so I'm going to hit escape to bring it back. Or if I want to move, and let's say I actually, before I even click that face, let's say I just want to move, and I click on this point, it's just going to move that point. And you can see how really easy it is to kind of create distortions in your shape when you don't mean it to. So I'm going to hit escape again. So if I wanted to move the entire shape, I would triple click it, and then again that's what lets me move this shape. Or if I want to make a copy and a paste of it, I would hit the Alt or Option key, so I'm holding that down now, and then I go to move, and that creates this copy, which is pretty handy. That's what we practiced last class, showed you how to move things around. This is not perfect though if we're dealing with a lot of different shapes. We don't always want to have things kind of so easily pulled out of plane or kind of distorted. And this becomes an issue if we have lots of groups kind of working with each other. So like if I move this group now to where it's touching the other group of shapes, now it's like the computer has kind of melded these two shapes together, which can create a distortion. If I basically made one big shape out of the two little shapes, I can no longer move those two independently of themselves. If I try to triple click, it highlights everything, which I did not mean for that to do. So if I want to have two different groups that touch without turning into one large group, what I want to do here is actually just make groups out of things. So for example, I triple click, and I'm going to lock all these shapes together by just saying make group. So I triple clicked it, I right clicked, and then said hit make group, or you can go to edit, make group there as well. So now, as opposed to this one, which is not a group, when I click on this once, each time I click, I'm highlighting a separate face. Whereas this one, I click once, and it's one group, it's one item. I can move this around now really easily. I can just click on it once, go to move it. I can even accidentally overlap, and then say, oops, I did not mean to accidentally overlap, so I can bring it back. And it lets me move it around without fear of it combining with other shapes or without it becoming distorted. Whereas this one over here, if like I showed you before, if I just click once and then try to move it, it kind of messes everything up. So that is a definite advantage of using groups. If you're going to be dealing with lots of different shapes, you can just say make group, and then that kind of protects that shape. So real quick, I'm going to, and again, if I wanted to make that a group, triple click it, right click, make group. And now this way each one is its kind of own entity. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and delete one of these groups. I'm going to show you a little bit about working with these groups. So one of the benefits of working with groups is, like we talked about, it does let us move things around without fear of altering anything. But if we need to make changes to this group, all you have to do is triple click it. Again, so here's the group. If I click it once, it just highlights the whole group. And actually, if I click it twice, it lets me go into the group. It's like the group setting is like a force field that protects the group. That's this kind of dotted box that goes around it. And now that I'm within that box, I can now work on these faces individually. So let's say I have this group. It's this object that's kind of a short rectangle and I decide, well, I'd actually prefer this to be a larger rectangle. I want to push-pull this up, but notice right now I can't do it because I can't select one of the faces in this group while it's in the group force field, essentially. So what I have to do is double click on it, and now I can use my pull push option and I can just go ahead and bring that on up. So now my group is that tall. That makes it easier. And one of the things I want to do is I actually would like to build a wall out of this, not so much a cube, but I want a wall that has a window in it, or a door, or whatever I want it to be. So I'm just going to say a wall with a window. So what I'd like to do actually is go ahead and make this cube a little narrower. So I'm going to go into the group, I'm going to click on the face, and I'm going to bring it in a little bit. So now I have this kind of wall. Actually, I'm going to make it a little narrower still. So now I have this wall. If I want to measure it, I can. And I know that this, you can look down here in the bottom corner, but it's 0.2 meters. That is 20 centimeters. So I have a 20 centimeter thick wall, just in case you're curious. And now with this wall, what I want to have is like a window cut into it. And there's a pretty easy way to go about cutting a window into this wall, which I'll show you, and it's something that with groups people often struggle with, is like I said before, now that it's a group, I can't just go and make changes to it automatically. If I want to cut a window into this, my best option is to draw a rectangle on this face right here, and then push it, but I want to push it through until it lines up with the other face on the back side here. Because then what I've done essentially is I've made the planes overlap to where they're perfectly in plane with themselves, and it just makes it disappear. However, if I try to draw that rectangle on the outside of this group, it won't let me do it. I can draw the rectangle there, but if I try to push-pull, I can pull it out. That's not a problem, but I can't just push it through and have it get rid of that window, because essentially all I'm doing is pushing this shape through my group and having it come out the other side, but it hasn't made the change to the group itself. So I'm going to undo that push-pull, and actually I'm even going to just delete that rectangle because it doesn't fix my problem of wanting a window in this wall here. What I need to do is highlight the group once again, and because I want to cut a window into this face, see how when I click I select these different faces, I want to select this face because I want to cut a window into it. And then what I'm going to do is select a rectangle, so I want a rectangular window. I drew that rectangle on there, and now notice that I have two different faces on this face. I have the original outer face and then the new inner face that I've created. And from there, I'm just going to push-pull that face, and you can kind of look down in the corner. You see how I push it in and it goes negative 0.1 meters, negative 0.2 meters, and that's the thickness of our wall. And what it'll do is it'll kind of snap to that thickness, but notice when I get to that negative 0.2, it kind of takes on a darker shade. It looks almost bluish. Let me rotate around so you can see that a little better. So I'm going to select this wall, select this face, I'm going to select and then push it in, and notice how it takes on that kind of darker gray shade right at the negative 0.2 meters. Once I click again, that has cut a window here for me because I made it exactly as thick as the shape. So that's how you can cut windows and doors and stuff into shapes, is you just use that push-pull to offset the thickness of it. Sometimes if you have walls that are kind of a strange thickness and it's hard to push it back and make it offset, if you just figure out how thick your wall is or your shape and then offset the exact distance, you can even just type that in down here. As you push it in, type in how thick your wall is and then hit enter, and it'll automatically cut that window in. And that whole shape is still a group. I can still move that around or do whatever I need to do. So that is how you make groups. That is how you make changes to objects while they're in groups. I'm going to stop the video right here and load that one, and that will be the how to make groups video. But I'm going to make another one real quick that shows you the difference between groups and components, because they're essentially the same thing, except groups are a little more independent of what components are, but you do need to know both. So I'll stop this video and I'll make you a new one soon about groups and components.